Well, myself and Mary would love to thank you for coming along today, and hopefully we'll enjoy each other's company today. We've just come back from Wilhelmina, so we spent 3 days, I think it was, up there. It was a bit colder there than here, minus 15 or something like that. But it was beautiful, just snow everywhere, quite thick, metre deep or so. I now have the ability to absorb new things that I could not absorb before. And this is a very powerful way of changing. If I can't do that, I can't change. Yeah? So truth is also, I feel, a doorway into the third quality. Now, I think many of you could probably guess what that would be. Love. Okay. What I see happening on the earth is that we are so fascinated with investigation of spiritual things, that I put in quotations, that we think are spiritual, but none of them include love. So we're investigating metaphysical things, things that happen in our universe, but none of them include love. I have a strong belief, and I'm not sure about how you feel about this, but I have a strong belief that love is in fact the primary quality of the universe itself. In other words, everything in the universe was created with a loving intent and has love behind it. Now, later you might like to ask some questions about that, because there are often people in the audience feel, but what about when somebody dies, like a child dies? Where's the love in that? Or what about when animals attack other animals? Where's the love in that? And there is actually, what I've discovered is there's love in every single thing, every single action, but you have to understand where it is. You have to understand the truth of it. That's all. And every single question you could ask, if you have love inside of you, you will know the answer very, very rapidly. And I'm talking not just about emotional questions, but rather scientific questions and other questions about the universe that surrounds us. Not just one or two questions about spirituality, but rather questions about our entire life. Now, there's two forms of love, which I'd like to discuss with you. So if we come across here, there's two forms of love. The first form of love that I'd like to talk about is what I call natural love. This is the love that you have inside of yourself that you can give to everything around you. It comes from within yourself. You have the ability to develop it, or you have the ability to destroy it as well, inside of yourself. Not completely destroyed, I believe, but it almost looks like it's completely destroyed from an external person watching. Now, this love, I would call the love that comes from within. So it's from within. It can be developed. In other words, it can grow, it can change, it can also be suppressed, and it can shrink, and therefore be as though it does not exist sometimes, it looks like, in some situations. This is the love that I believe is the seed of love that is being placed inside of every human. All of us have the ability to love, and it can be developed, and we can grow in love. This is the natural love that's within us. This love, I feel, is where many of us on earth are not in a space very much of yet, because we're still willing to go to war, which tells us that we don't have much natural love as a human race. Because if we had natural love, we could not go to war. We would always have to find an alternative solution than war. Does that make sense? So natural love is something that we can develop, we can change within ourselves, and as a human race, it's very, very needed. Like, we badly need to have more love on the planet. And I feel a lot of us are waiting for somebody else to be more loving rather than us having to become more loving first. So that's part of our problem. We're waiting for another person to become more loving rather than loving them first. That's natural love. Now, truth opens is a doorway into that. How is that? How does that work? Well, truth, when we're truthful with ourselves in particular, we see where we're unloving. We see, wow, this morning, I was driving along and I cut that person off. That wasn't a very loving thing. They had to slam on their brakes, it was a bit slippery, they could have had a bad accident. I wasn't very loving in that space. Right? Now, if I'm humble, I will see my action and I'll go, whoa, there's an example of where I'm being unloving. And I'll look at the truth of that. I'll go, okay, why was I unloving? It was because I felt that my needs were more important than theirs. I felt that, I needed to get to that little space that I'd put my car into more than they did. So I thought in that moment that I was better than them, or I wanted to be better than them in that moment. I wanted to be in front of them at that moment. These are all unloving feelings inside of me, if I'm honest about them. If I have a humility, I can see. And then when I have a desire for personal truth, I see, yes, there's my unloving behaviour. And if I have a desire to love, I would want to change. I'd want to find out why I do those kind of things all the time and fix them up so that I don't do them anymore. Can you see that? Okay, the second form of love, which I feel is the far more powerful of the two, is God's love, which I call and have called divine love. Now, this love is not love that's within you. It comes from outside of you. It comes from the entity that I call God, the Creator, your Creator. It has the potential of entering you, but only if you desire that to occur. Only if you want that to happen. That's God's love, God's divine love. This love and this love both have the potential to change people around you and change yourself. So I don't know if you've noticed that. Have you noticed that when you show love to somebody, when you show compassion or understanding and kindness to somebody, it's like sometimes they change. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed when other people show you that, you feel different? It's almost like you want to change. It gives you a momentum to change as well. That's the power of love. Even in our relationships, how many of you like to have a relationship without love? It feels pretty bland and ordinary, and oftentimes it doesn't last very long. Isn't that the case? But if there's love there, love is this binding force that can change us for years and years and years. In the first century, I was asked, what are the two main commandments that you can give us? And I said, the first one is you must love God with your whole heart, your whole soul, and your whole mind, and all of your strength. So this is relating to the first one, God's love, and the love you have for God. And then I said, and the second one is this, you must love your neighbour as yourself. So that's the second one, this natural love, developing the natural love. So they are the primary principles of what myself and Mary have been teaching all around the world. Does that make sense? Now, of course, this is a very, very short introduction to a very complicated subject. You understand? So obviously there are many, many more things that we can discuss within this. But if you can see that these are the primary principles, then we've got somewhere we can move from. So the aspect of humility, very, very important. Because it opens your heart to truth. The aspect of truth is very, very important because it's a doorway into discovering more about love. And love is what changes the universe, but it also is what the universe operates upon. So the more you can learn about the love, the better off your life is going to be. Not only your life, but the life of everyone around you as well. Now, if you think about it, the majority of spirituality that we see on the planet, or the majority of almost any form of investigations that we see on the planet, have one of these things missing, generally. And quite often it's quite blatantly missing. Have you noticed that? So let's go back to Christianity as a belief system. Most Christians believe that this is the Bible is the complete written word of God. They believe that you do not need anything else. There is no other truth that you can present. Isn't that what most of them believe? You ask almost any Christian from any denomination and they basically will generally say that. Right? They might not personally believe that, of course, but generally they say that. Now I put to you that that's not humility. Because humility is to be open to all forms of new truth. And if I'm saying that this is the truth and there is no other, then I'm no longer being humble, am I? I'm no longer open to receiving new truth. I'm no longer open to receiving even more truth about myself. So that one statement is proof that true spirituality, humility, does not exist. It's just a way of life or a way of thinking. It's instead of this, so I'd call all of this true spirituality. Instead of that, it is just a facade. And in fact, I feel it's a lie. Because we're making statements often where one particular thing is said to be true, but the reality is that if it doesn't have these three things in it, it cannot be true. It's as simple as that. It cannot be. And if you can measure everything using those basic principles, and you don't have to be a member of a religion or any other way of life to do that, you can measure these things based on these principles, then you can look at different forms of religious thought, you can look at different forms of scientific thought, you can look at different forms of political thought, you can look at different forms of medical thought, and so forth and so forth. And every single one of them has either love or no love in it, or partial love in it. Every single one of them has truth or no truth, or partial truth in it. And very few of them have any humility.